Hey, Dr. Badijo here. So today we're going to learn how to take a 3D model and pull it into 3D Builder and slice it into different chunks so that you can print it in a much larger format on a 3D printer. So for instance, let's go ahead and go here to the Temple of the Sun model. This is the Temple of the Sun from Machu Picchu, the site. And here's the OBJ, and I'm going to right click it, open with. You want to make sure it opens in 3D Builder. This is something that is now installed on Windows 10, and I guess Windows 10 and above. And once you open it in here, you'll see your model populate in the space, but you're going to have to import it with whatever scale it came with, or change the scale if you'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and import. And now my model's here in the center, which, it's actually kind of ghosty looking. In order for it to become solid, you actually have to select it, and then you can see the solid model more so, right? Navigating here is a little challenging sometimes. Usually you want to click out here in the space that's not the model, and if I use my left click and then drag, that's kind of your rotation, right? And then your right click and drag is your pan. That kind of helps you navigate. And then of course your zoom is your scrolly wheel to go in and out. If I start touching the model, if I use the little hand and hit the left mouse button and hold, you'll see that it's grabbing the model itself. If, let's say right now I've got my translate button depressed down here, it's going to start translating that model. So you can see it's moving it around, right? So I'm going to Control Z back to its initial state. If I have this one clicked here, rotate, you'll see that it's preparing itself to actually rotate the model, right? Control Z and put it back. And then scaling. You can rescale your model as well using your scale tool down here. Down in the bottom is also very helpful. You can see your dimensions, X, Y, and Z, right? So your horizontal dimensions as well as your vertical dimension, Z. I usually will just keep this one depressed here and just making sure that I'm clicking not on the model but outside so that I can navigate appropriately, right? Okay. So it looks like we have our model here is 26.17 millimeters tall. Looks nice. And we're ready to slice it up into chunks so that I can actually print each chunk at full size of the bed of my printer and then glue them together. I can sand them down and then glue them together to make a much larger 3D print than my printer could actually print in one go. Right? So the way to do that, you want to select your model as I have it here selected, and then hit Edit, and you'll see a button that says Split. Go ahead and click that. Notice what happened. We have a plane that has been introduced here to the scene, and on that plane, it will split my model. It'll use that plane to actually slice it. And so what you'll do is you'll actually come up here and hit Keep Both, because it's not like we're trying to eliminate parts of the model. We're just trying to split it into different chunks. There we go. Now we can actually see the whole thing, and it looks like we actually want to rotate our plane. Right, so let's click this button down here to rotate. Okay. And as you can see, the arrows have changed to be these rotation arrows. And very faintly, you can actually see the little rotation orb. But let's get this to be straight up and down at 90, right? How do I know it's 90? If you look down at the bottom, you'll see right here, pitch, it says 90. So I know I've now created my plane to be vertical. I'm going to rotate just so I can see it from the top down. And it looks pretty good to me. Right? I want to slice it in strategic places. Of course, I'm going to try to keep it so that I have only 4 chunks to deal with here, so I'm going to slice it twice. But let's kind of zoom in and take a look. Yeah, so I definitely want to, I may actually want to shift this over a little bit so that it's cutting into that window or the door. I'm trying to figure out if I have a window on the other side that I'll be slicing. No, that looks good. Looks like it'll work out. So let's go ahead and shift it now. Now you can use multiple things to shift the plane back and forth. You could come over here where it says move, click it, and at this point I could actually move the plane. Let's try that again. Make sure that move is actually clicked down here. And then if I bring the hand, you'll see that the hand appears when I am kind of mousing over the plane in the middle here. If I click and grab, then I can actually move the plane back and forth, if you see it, and just decide to slice this somewhere else. And I'm going to decide to slice, let's see, right here. I think this is a good center point for me, where I've shifted it negative 2.55 millimeters to the left, right? So it's kind of nice you actually get a readout here. And if you want to be super exact about it, just click down here the button and you can enter your own value. Let's go with -3. Right, now it's shifted just the tiniest bit so that I'm at -3. Let's see if that's where I want it to be. I actually want it to be shifted a bit further to the left so the whole doorway actually shows up. Okay, so if that's kind of where we want to actually slice it, and we double check that all our angles look good and that the print will turn out just fine, slicing it right in there, we'll go ahead and hit the button to slice. So I'm going to make sure that keeping both is actually the one that you're using at the top, and then hit split. And you'll see this little thing start loading here in the bottom right. And then what you'll notice here is under items on the right hand side, you'll see two different things now. And if you play around, you can click and toggle these on and off. So neither of them are selected. Now that's just the left one is selected. Now both are selected. So get used to using this kind of as, this little toggle on and off tool. Okay, let's go ahead and start splitting again. I'm gonna bring back my split plane. And what did I say before? Let's see, a rotation. Our pitch was at 90. So I'm gonna enter that in. That's just making my plane vertical. And our yaw, which should be, spinning it, let's make that also 90 degrees. And look what we got. The plane is now cross-cutting in the other direction. And I want to check to make sure it's going to be cutting where I want it to. It looks about right. I think I'm okay with it cutting right into the window and having kind of part of it on one side, part on the other. Okay. So we'll leave it right in there where it is. And I will hit split. So in theory, I should have 4 pieces after this is done. And there they are, all 4 pieces of the pie. So now when I go to my printer, I'll print this at max capacity, or at least, as far as it can fill up the bed, and then I'll print all of the other ones, right, at the same scale change to actually print them all so that they'll fit together and be a much larger print. So what I mean by that is, if I put this in my slicing software like Cura, and I tell it to, increase scale by 30% or 100%, I need to make sure that same percent increase on the scale is being done for each of these models before they're printed, right? So now comes the challenge of the second phase, which is exporting each of these pieces. So best way to do that, find the place where you want to put all your pieces. I usually create a little folder inside of my main folder that's called parts, and it should be empty. If you just grab these items, you can actually drag them out of the app into the other app. So I'm actually going to split screen here. Click and drag. I'm going to hold it over the open space. You see how all of a sudden it turns into where it says copy? Now I can release it. And now this has become my first part. All right, so I want to rename it. I'll just say Machu Picchu, Temple of the Sun. Oops. Part 1. See that? And I'll actually give it a little hyphen there. Right. So 3MF is your file extension. You don't want to mess around with that, but you do want to kind of change the the actual name of the file so that you understand which is your part 1, part 2, part 3, and all of that. I'll hit enter. That one's ready to go. And so now we want to go ahead and export the rest of these pieces here. So for this, I'm actually going to deselect the other ones and get started with this one here. Click, drag it over. It still has the no symbol on it. That's perfectly fine. It changes to copy, and then I release it. And we're going to rename that one as well. That one will be my part 2. And so forth. I should change the copy. There we go. And then the final one. So depending on how big there are parts of your model on, that may take a little longer to actually get to the copy so that you can actually paste it in there. Part 4. All right, so here we are. I've got my 4 parts, which now I can bring into Cura software or any other slicing software like Simplify or whatever came with your 3D printer, and start to prepare them to slice and print. And that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching.